Hey everyone, and welcome to the HR Vision podcast. I'm your host, Ivo, and every week I'm going to have a conversation that matters about HR. This week I have Kate Bush with me. Welcome, Kate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me for this conversation today. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too, Kate. Thank you so much. Kate is based in the UK. She's a project manager at FourVision. And today we're going to discuss what it's like to be a project manager in HR tech. So let's start. Kate, welcome again. I would like to start from the beginning with a small introduction about yourself and your way into this world of HR tech.
In terms of how did I get into it, or?
Yeah, how did you get into it? If you studied, for project management at all, what was your background before getting here?
Well, I guess how did I get to where I am today? So I've been in the Microsoft Dynamics community for 25 years at least, something like that. I actually started sort of on the customer side, working for a Danish company who were implementing Navision, as it was known then, version 260. And a long story short, but from there, I ended up going into the partner community. And I guess in terms of I didn't really sort of set out to necessarily have a career in HR, but there was one thing in particular on that very first employment with the partner that sort of set me sort of, I guess, on the course of HR and what I feel about it. Throughout my career, people and relationships have always been at the heart of everything I do. My career started through sort of account management, into support, into operational management, project management, but it's always been the people and the relationships through all of that have really mattered for me. And I remember actually, in terms of the first role I had at the partner, I'd obviously been through at the interview. I had a formal job offer that I accepted. I had a contract. I had a start date, and I turned up on my very first day to find out that the managing director was actually not expecting me. In fact, there was no one expecting me other than the person who had interviewed me for this role. There was no HR process, so there was nothing. And my first day was sort of sat in a room with two colleagues who worked on the support desk in this partner who didn't speak to me for the whole day. And I think that really sort of set the scene for me as to, an element of what I think about HR and the whole importance of relationship and communication throughout everything that I do. So that experience really, has stayed with me. And I think about that and how I communicate with people all the time, including the work that I now do as a project manager.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's a very interesting perspective, right from the start. So you worked always with the partner community within Microsoft.
That's where a large part of my career has been. Yes.
Yeah, for 25 years. That's a long time. So. Did you study for project management? Was something that came into your path? Like you start developing skills within that area, and you move naturally there. How did that happen?
Yeah, it was a natural progression for me. As I said, I started. So going back to this very first role where they weren't expecting me, actually, I was going to be working on the support desk. So using all the knowledge that I had gained working for the Danish company, but improving my knowledge and going into different products on the support desk. But as I said, no one was expecting me. But I stuck it out. And I was in that role, I think, for about a year. I was then promoted into account management. And that was really interesting for me, again, in terms of getting inside the customers, knowing their business. So you knew how to help them. You knew what additional products or services that you could offer them that again, would help their business to evolve and grow. And again, that keeps coming back to the relationships that you have with people. I then went on to head up a particular account management team, which was very interesting. From there, I went actually into operational management. So I worked for a partner where I was the operations director. I had the project managers, the consultants, the developers reporting into me. But that sort of then took me sort of more into sort of that project management field, and have managed various projects since.
Okay. And how did the connection happen with the technology behind HR? Was only here at FourVision? Was something that you had in previous experiences? Was actually the people side that pulled you into the technology area? How did that happen?
To be honest, I don't know. If I'm honest with you, but I can say that as my journey in technology has continued, my belief is still sort of around the importance of people and relationships. Yes. I think I might have touched on this before, but you can have the very best systems and processes and projects and technology, but I still firmly believe that the very best assets are the people. The relationships that you can build still make such a real difference. And I think, in terms of what the whole world has been going through over the last couple of years with COVID, I think it's taught us how important that connection with people is. The power of the voice and the face still, is so very important.
Absolutely. I think we agree there. Okay, so now that you're a project manager in HR Tech, so you're dealing with technology, or at least you're dealing with projects to implement technology. What do you think are, what gets you most excited about it? Do you find it fulfilling the way you're enabling people to get the best technology for them to do their best work?
Yeah, definitely. That's a real sort of excitement and buzz, when you're working on a project and knowing that you can deliver some sort of real and meaningful changes to businesses and their people within the businesses as well. So I really get a real buzz out of that.
Okay. What do you think? What do you think are the must-haves if that for a project manager to be successful in this HR tech world, or even tech world for that matter?
Oh, goodness. Must-haves.
You can take your time. It's fine.
Sense of humor, definitely.
All right, that's important.
Patience, great listening skills. You need to be able to plan. So you have planning management skills, people management skills, being able to lead the team, commercial management, that those things are important in abundance.
Do you think they are equally important, or there's something that it's more important than above all?
If you don't listen in the first instance, then you won't be able to potentially do any of those things. So you've got to be able to listen to then be able to plan, to then be able to lead, to take care of your budget. So probably put that one at the top of the list, but maybe ask me again in a few minutes' time. I might change my mind. Okay,
well, let's go again. No, I'm kidding. Okay, listening is a very good perspective of it. Do you find it hard to do that, to listen sometimes to what the requirements are? Do you think it's a challenge sometimes to really understand what the customer is asking for, or because part of it, in my view, is also asking the right questions. So I don't know if you find that hard sometimes to listen or to understand what are the requirements and what you need to do in certain projects. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think listening is a hard skill. In any case, I think sometimes maybe we're all guilty of hearing things rather than listening.
Yes.
So that's probably the first thing to say. There are still things that I come across that I don't fully understand, but what I have so much more confidence now in, perhaps than at the start of my career, is asking things. If you don't understand something that you're listening to, or you're hearing, or you're reading, don't be afraid to ask again, because it's important to have that understanding and to be clear. Because if you, as a project manager, isn't clear, how can you guide the customer? How can you advise your team? How can you do anything? So, yeah, it's there are things we come across that we don't understand, and so don't be afraid to ask questions around it.
All right. I'm just a little thing on that. What kind do you have any, not special, but some strategies that you have, to in project management that are, that could be a good advice for people looking into that area? Which kind of tools that you use for communicate with your team? Do you have periodic meetings? How do you organize your work as a project manager?
How do I organize my work, or was your question more around?
More around the teams, the teams that you work with. You work, of course, with consultants. You work with the clients, so you need to manage all that communication. So I'm more interested to know, like, in tangible things that you use that help you managing projects.
So for me, managing the project and making sure that I'm communicating with my team. So if you're going to have, we all need to have meetings, whether that's one-to-one meetings with a specific member of your team for a catch-up, or perhaps a stand-up call. But always make your meetings have a purpose and a set objectives that we're going to get out of the meetings. So rather than just sort of put meetings into everybody's diary without understanding the impact of those meetings and what we're looking to get out of them. I think it's as busy as you can be in a project. It's always good to make time to talk to your team as well. Sometimes you can get so busy, your focus just ends up being around what's the latest update on this, what's happened on this task, are we on track for that? Whilst all of that is important, it is sometimes still very important just to be able to check in with somebody and don't, sometimes maybe we're all guilty of this, but don't ask the question, hi, how are you, at the beginning of the conversation if you haven't really got time to listen to what that person is going to say to you. And again, I think how our work has changed with COVID, being able to have that time just to connect in with people and check that they really are okay is also important as well. Rather than, hi, how are you? Are you okay? And you're not really listening to that answer before you've gone into, can you just tell me what's going on with this?
Yeah, I totally understand. Did you find your communication skills to grow or to develop during COVID? Because I guess you really need to find the time and to try to be personal in a world, in the remote world. You know what I mean? Did you find it hard, and how did you overcome that?
I think I did have to develop the skills, thinking a little bit more about taking that time to connect with people. It's always nice to be able to see somebody's face when you're talking to them as well, because you can look in their eyes and look at them and see, and also see how they're feeling. But also there's an awareness that not everybody feels comfortable with things like that as well. And you want to make people feel comfortable when you're talking to them, because probably that way you're going to get more information out of them. And I think that's also a very important point as well, that when you're connecting with people, making sure that you're talking in a language that they also understand. And that can apply with customers as well, right? Sometimes you end up talking all about languages and technology that that might mean something to you, but they don't necessarily mean something to other people as well. So I did have to develop and change a little bit to make sure that you are still connecting with people in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now going through like overall implementations that you've been working on, overall projects, what would you say are the most common challenges that you face, during a project implementation?
Oh goodness. Most common challenges.
I love how you start almost every answer like, oh goodness. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So scope creep, scope creep, I guess, can be natural for any project. Maybe there are times when it could be seen as beneficial. However, it's always very important to manage scope, communicate with the whole project team, and to keep that scope in check as well, for a whole variety of reasons. Lack of communication. We've talked a lot about that in our conversation so far, but effective communication in a project is extremely important for the project to be successful.
Yeah.
A lack of clear goals and a success criteria. Clarity is one of the most important requirements for the successful completion of a project. Lack of it creates several challenges. Budgeting issues. Making sure there's a clear budget and being clear on how you intend to report on that budget at the very beginning.
And now probably that connects also with the scope, right?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Inadequate risk management. Being able to identify possible and potential what-if scenarios and making contingency plans is important as well. I firmly believe in that. I think lack of accountability. I think in my experience, a project team performs really well when every member of that team feels responsible and tries to fulfill that role that's assigned to them. I think where there is that lack of accountability, that tends to lead to issues as well. I think also limited engagement around stakeholders.
Okay.
And unrealistic deadlines, definitely.
Yeah, well,
that's one I've come across.
Yeah, that's that's probably a problem for everyone. I'd like what you said, that lack of accountability. How do that translate into practical terms? It depends on the project manager's style of management or something. That it doesn't include people or doesn't give them the responsibility or the accountability to do their work. How does that translate to practical terms, if you can explain it?
So I think, as I said, first of all, everyone to understand the role and the responsibilities that they have on the project. I think that's the first step. I think as a project manager, when you're kicking off the project, it's important that people know the standards and what's expected of them, why we're delivering this, what's important, what's the business case, how we expect to operate, the standards that there are expected around that. And I think for people to feel empowered to do their role, but to know that they have that accountability, they have that responsibility on them.
Okay, all right. I think this, what I'm going to ask you next, probably is not like the main responsibility of a project manager, but a lot of times software implementation or to be successful, there's a lot of change management involved. So do you do anything to help the customer sometimes understand what is in question? Why are we doing this? Do you go that way as well to support the customer on that transition? How do you do that? Because sometimes the decision comes from the management above, and the people that are working with it actually don't agree, don't want to do it. Those those kind of impediments. So do you do something in that sense? Do you try to help them with change management?
Yes, I think so. I mean, to understand change, for change to need to be effective, we need to understand sort of all the ins and outs of that change. So perhaps where you're looking to help people is, and help sort of communicate to the stakeholders within the business in terms of why do you need to change? What are the key objectives? To help identify what the benefits of the change will be to the organization, to focus on people in a positive way, the impact on the people positively, impacts on how that will affect the way that the people will work as well, in terms of we hope that will be a positive impact as well. And what people will need to do to be successful to achieve that change as well.
Okay. Let's say, some listeners, they have never experienced an implementation. So I would ask you to, not to walk us through all the process, but what would be the first steps, when someone is starting an implementation? What are the first steps that you take as a project manager to make it go more smoothly, let's say?
I'm not sorry, I understand the question. Can you just expand on that a little bit more for me?
Of course. Imagine that the listeners, they don't, they never experienced an implementation, or they're about to start one, and you are the project manager for that customer. So my question is, what can they expect from you? In terms of project management to make it go more smoothly, what are the steps you take in place, initial meetings, reports, what they can expect, to get the updates about the project every week, every day, every 2 weeks. How do you go about it? You understand what I mean?
I think so.
Okay.
So I think as part of the governance that you will put down for your project, and again, that should have been covered off in your statement of work and then reflected also into your project charter. So you would have a clear governance structure that will say how we are going to engage, how we are going to report, the frequency of the reporting, the types of meetings that we're going to happen. I think it's important to establish at the very beginning that open communication, which will help to build trust as well. And that comes into reporting as well. Even though you might be having a weekly steering committee meeting and you may well be delivering a weekly report, we know that there are always going to be challenges and hiccups along the way with the projects. But it's important, I feel, that when something like that happens, to communicate these things sooner rather than later, because it helps to then, here we found this problem. We were hoping this task would be completed today, but this has happened. And so unfortunately, this task won't be completed until the end of the week. However, this is what we're going to do to mitigate any risk, or this is how, although this is happening, it won't impact in other areas. So to have that dialogue open and to get that feeling of trust established, and to talk about that at the very beginning in terms of how we want to work together as a team. Again, in terms of establishing the rules, that sounds quite a strong word. But, that's a bad word. Establishing the way how as a team we want to communicate. But again, don't be afraid to ask questions. So don't say yes if we actually mean no. Ask questions if we don't understand, which is something we talked about earlier as well. I think making sure that you have committed project sponsors and active, engaged stakeholders as well, making that clear at the very beginning of the project is very important.
There you go. You asked a question to clarify the question, and the answer came very insightful. So thank you for that. See,
thank you.
You're practicing what you're saying. You're walking the walk. So a couple more questions for you, Kate. Here, now that you were working with HR tech, and you said that in your previous experience you worked always with people and the HR world. So my question is, how important do you believe HR tech is for managing process to help people in their daily lives as HR professionals or managers or even employees? What do you think it's the importance of this technology?
I think it's very important. I think that, it's a really interesting question. I mean, it is important, but it actually creates a lot of thought in my mind when I think about the future of HR and technology. Perhaps the idea that maybe software should be designed with a broader business user in mind. Mm-hmm. Focusing on the overall organization's success. I think technology also needs to look at preparing for the changing work methods and styles, so, for diverse workforces as well. Mm-hmm. I think planning it. Sorry, I cut over you.
No, I was just saying, do you think it's already doing that? It's already going that direction?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So do you see with the customers that you've been working on, do you see a major improvement? Do they give you feedback about how they are looking into the tool, how they are liking it or not? What you've been listening to, let's say?
They do give feedback that they're liking the tools, that it's definitely helping shaping their business and improving lives, for themselves and for their employees as well.
Okay, so it's happening now, and it's also a trend in your view that HR tech should be more and more a technology that supports the new way of working, that supports the organization, that helps people take decision based on data and what their employees are doing, how they are performing, and all that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Just one small challenge to end the episode. Challenge. Well, it's another question, basically. No, but if we have someone out there that doesn't know anything about HR tech or doubting it or whatever that may be, what would you say to these people?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, you've caught me on that challenge.
So I'm gonna put it to you in another way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Imagine that you have a family member, someone very close to you, and he or she would ask you in a family dinner or something. Hey, Kate, I know that I've been hearing about this HR technology and those kind of things. Do you think that's usefully working that, right? So do you think it's useful? Let's put it that way.
It's definitely useful. I mean, it's helping to change things in a positive way for people. It's helping them to give like a richer experience. It's helping them to stay more connected. So yeah, it's definitely worth it.
Okay. Well, I think that's a simple and fair answer. So
okay.
Thank you for that. All right.
You're welcome.
All right, Kate. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did too.
Yeah, me too. It's been great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kate. And for everyone out there listening, I hope you liked the episode, and we'll see you in the next one.